in my mind, I was able to think and process. And if I let him get back up, he's going to get back up. I was like, let me finish this right now. And I caught him with that left hook, and then I caught him again with that right hook just to make sure the job was done, because I was calculating his hands wasn't touching the ground and his knees weren't touching the ground, but I know he was still going down. To make sure he wasn't get back up, I had to let those last two off, man.
Combat Sports Report. Only on SportsGrid.
He's just only 2,300 points behind. So even if he does win at Memphis, he's still going to be behind Scottie Scheffler in the points by 300. So why? I mean, I want Scottie Scheffler to show up in Memphis, but does he need to? If Rory's not showing up and the third place guy, even if he wins, isn't going to pass him?
The Smylie Show. Only on SportsGrid.
No superstar wants to go to Portland there, so you go, oh, well, Dame actually wants to be back here, and this is going to hurt us. It sort of brings back those vibes where Kobe Bryant was in L.A. Great basketball player, horrendous basketball team, but maybe he could sell a couple extra seats and be a star in the building. That's Dame. And also from a perspective of what Dame wants, Dame just doesn't care about championships, and that's okay. Like, he makes a lot of money. He can do that and continue to lose in Portland. Can have it both ways, I guess.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.
Big Fish is the best player in the WNBA. She is running away with the MVP award. Why is that? Caitlin Clark, injured. Asia Wilson, not playing at Asia Wilson level, but it's more about the fact about what's around her has been an issue. So to me, Fish is almost like the MVP because everyone else has like gone down in some way, shape, or form.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Dude, that's Smylie Kaufman for 61. Wow.
I'm Smylie Kaufman, and this is The Smylie Show.
Smylie, the 2025 major season is over, much to our dismay, but we're not ready to cap it off quite yet. This kind of feels like, to me, and I'd love to hear your input on this as well, this is like the day after Christmas. We're kind of in that week between Christmas and the New Year. New Year's Eve is kind of like the Ryder Cup at Bethpage. We still have that to look forward to a little bit, but we're on the come down from the holiday season. We're getting ready for the bleak months to follow without high leverage golf. But that's okay, because in addition...
I would say like the best way to explain it is when you get back to school type of situation after Christmas break, which feels like forever. Like Christmas felt like ages ago.
Yeah.
But we're trying to remember what we got for Christmas, and people ask, well, what'd you get? And we're like, I don't really know what I got. And so that's kind of what this episode's all about.
You just nailed it on the head, because we're going to try to go back and relive all four of the majors this season and trying to compile the highlights and the memories from the 2025 Masters. Feels like, what was the first gift I unwrapped? And I don't even really know what that was, and it's now like stashed at the bottom of my toy drawer because I got so many other things. So we're going to do that, but it's also kind of like it's a combination between that and the Super Bowl just ended, or whatever season just ended, and it's the way too early mock draft for next season, or preview picks for who's going to win the Super Bowl next season, because we can already start looking ahead to the 2026 major season, and looking at venues, looking at kind of early outright winner odds. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to relive all that. We're going to start with the help of our friends from Shipsticks, which I feel like it's a wistful send-off. It's like, the trip's over, the golf trip's over. You pack the bag up, you're sending it home. At least it's going to get home safely, but it's a season ended.
Who won the thing? How do you figure that out? When's that get announced?
That's a great question.
Now I'm kind of like in on who wins this deal, and hopefully it comes from our show.
I'm a little invested myself. I just actually fired off an email to our friend Erin at Shipsticks to with all the different kind of promos we did for it. Maybe I'll have to check back with her and say, hey, can we get a little payoff here? Can we get one last send off of who the lucky winner was that's going to Ireland? This is just we're going to send Shipsticks off with just a little promo code for you to ship your sticks wherever you want to go to play golf as the season wraps up, which you'll have more time to now because you won't be watching major golf. Ship Sticks gets you from your front door to four easier than ever. They'll pick up your golf clubs from your home or office and deliver them on time, guaranteed, to your golf destination anywhere in and outside the United States. No more airport headaches, no more lugging heavy bags, just easy, stress-free travel for golfers like you. The supporting benefits include white glove service, complimentary insurance, real-time tracking, door-to-door service, international shipping, and it's for any occasion. ShipSticks is perfect for buddies trips, business trips, even family vacations where managing kids, strollers, and extra luggage can ruin your vacation before it's even begun. That's actually on that note. I'm going to use ShipSticks when we head out. Well, when I head out to the Walker Cup at Cypress Point. There you go. About a month. So this is perfect. I do have something to look forward to. You can enjoy 20% off your next shipment by using the promo code Smylie. That's SMYLIE. And we'll put that link, as always, in the podcast and YouTube description. So we kind of teased it right there, Smylie. 2025 Majors recap, of course, starts with the Masters tournament. We led into the year. You picked Ludwig Oberg to win this tournament. I picked Scottie Scheffler, the winner, of course, Rory McIlroy. You got a lot of great notes here.
This wasn't our one and done picks. This was just our picks before the season started. Okay. I was about to call you out on using Scotty twice during the year.
No. This was when we were rounding up back in January. We were kind of sketching out the entire major season. Sure. We have to go back and look at those picks. And then we'll do the same thing next year. We look at what we predicted right now in the beginning of the season. But you've done a nice job here. Just kind of laying out the week that was in Augusta. So just take us through it. Let's have a little conversation about the 2025 Masters.
Well, I'm going to start with, first off, gosh, April feels like a long way away. And so it's just that excitement, when that first major gets there, it's the buildup that we talked to the entire first part of the season. So I love just the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of Masters week. It is just the anticipation of having somebody you think is going to win. And by the end of Wednesday, you have 25 people that you have on your brain that could win the golf tournament. But besides just, the practice rounds and just how what Augusta is, I have really come to absolutely love and enjoy the Wednesday par 3 contest. And this year we were gifted some incredible content. First off, we had a couple guys go in the booth, Wyndham Clark and Max Homa, kind of mixing it up there with the broadcast. To have those guys be a part of it was fun and made it a little different. And then also you have like all of these players that are now playing, and it's funny because none of them seem to ever finish a hole. So none of them are ever going to win the par 3 contest. But I mean, just the goods we got from Tommy Fleetwood's kid, Frankie Fleetwood. I think the soundbite was maybe next year I'll be able to hit it over the pond in this like cute little Frankie Fleetwood accent. Just try to picture what that sounds like. And like Poppy, Rory's kid making a putt, Shane's daughter making a putt. And then Bennett's kid on the first tee was making noise while Scotty was about to hit his first shot. So that Wednesday par 3 contest kind of comes to mind as something that a lot of people would forget about, but it was really like one of the better par 3 contest days that I think we've had in quite some time.
I love starting there, given what we just talked about this last week at the Open Championship with Scotty talking about the importance of family. I mean, just thinking back to how family-centric in a lot of ways that week is and maybe the season's been. But I remember, the anticipation, the excitement you talk about showing up for the Masters. This is the first year that I actually sat in the press room and for the press building and got to ask questions of players. And I used one of my questions to ask Scotty what sort of merchandise shopping he was doing for Bennett that week. And we, of course, had Bennett scripted in Nike gear for the par 3 contest, which was hilarious. And just how cool that was. And then also on the back end of that week, as Rory's leading up to the tournament that could get him over the line to complete the career Grand Slam, which he eventually does, he talks about hanging out with Poppy after the Saturday round and watching Zootopia. So I just loved, I love the par 3 contest. We saw Poppy, play in that this year, and just the way that kind of this golf and family, in a lot of ways, that was a theme of this major season as well, which we love as dads who are watching our young kids grow up and take to the game of golf. And that's, it's nice to be able to zoom out and have that sort of special connection. And there's nothing in golf the entire year that is as good of a reminder of that as this par 3 tournament. I guess in addition to just watching Bennett Scheffler collect trophies.
Totally.
those are the two great reminders of that.
I would say honorable mentions of players that I think over time I'm eventually going to forget about their performance at the Masters this past year. I think honorable mention first is going to go to Justin Rose. I think over time I'm totally going to forget that he was in this playoff. Right now, I honestly have to remind myself every now and then. I was like, who was – like, I know he won the Grand Slam, but who did he beat again? Because like Justin Rose kind of came out of nowhere. He started the Masters with the 65 and was leading the golf tournament, and kind of just hung steady for quite some time during the golf tournament, and then Sunday kind of kicked it back up.
Justin Rose, and this has been a graphic we've seen at a number of different majors, is just this guy, doesn't matter how old he gets, and it's just he has such a veteran guile about him where he shows up to majors and he knows how to shoot a score and he stays in and around it. It feels like every single major. And I think that's an amazing and commendable thing. I mean, it is a bummer when you're the runner up a number of different times. This is not the first time he's been a runner up in the Masters tournament, but yeah, kudos to Justin Rose. I hope that factoid does not get lost in time, as it easily will when you're thinking about the winner being Rory McIlroy.
Totally. And the other honorable mention player too, I'm going to bring up here is actually Patrick Reed. I think I think a lot of people don't remember like that hole out at 17. It was just, kind of thrown in all the chaos that was going on. It's like, oh, and over to 17. And then
Shamar Stewart is having troubles before he even plays a snap. And he's seeing what's happened to the stars of this football team, by the way, right? The Higgins stuff wasn't super smooth. The Hendrickson stuff's not smooth.
But why pay him that big number where you've got Trey Henderson, who's an absolute superstar at edge? You always build a defense. Why haven't the Bengals been back to the Super Bowl in the last 4 years? It's real simple.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Drummond gives you minutes off the bench. I've always been a big Kelly Oubre guy. And Nick Nurse is supposed to be one of the top 5 coaches in the world. You can't tell me that at 12-1, the Philadelphia 76ers aren't at least something you need to consider as a sleeper to make it to the NBA Finals.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Money's everything. And then the other thing is I can't stand it now. That bothers me for some reason in sports when these guys leave and go somewhere else. They do these phony ass, ads in the newspaper or billboards of thanking the, city that they played in. I mean, every single guy does it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
No superstar wants to go to Portland there, so you go, oh, well, Dame actually wants to be back here, and this is going to hurt us. It sort of brings back those vibes when Kobe Bryant was in L.A. Great basketball player, horrendous basketball team, but maybe he could sell a couple extra seats and be a star in the building. That's Dame. And also from the perspective of what Dame wants, Dame just doesn't care about championships, and that's okay. Like, he makes a lot of money. He can do that and continue to lose in Portland. Can have it both ways, I guess.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
I think we talked about this during our journal or the recap right after the Masters, which is how cool it is to not have phones at Augusta National and all of the the patrons behind the 18th green, just watching the scoreboard and just trying to figure out what's going on in the tournament, trying to figure out what a roar is. But I can promise you this, a hole-out eagle is going to be a Rory McIlroy yell and scream and shout and roar. So that probably was the most confusing thing for every patron on that 18th hole, being like, that wasn't what we expected to see Patrick Reed be the hole out at 17. They probably thought that was a Rory roar. So that would be an honorable mention, is that P. Reed had, I think, third. He finished third. Is that right?
Yeah,
right.
I'll pull the leaderboard up right here. I have it linked. I believe that was, it's right. It's a solo third. He finished at 9 under. And it's funny looking back at this leaderboard because we just go through it. Rory McIlroy, Justin Rose finished at 11 under in the playoff. Patrick Reed third and 9 under, and then Scotty Scheffler solo fourth at 8 under, and we just, that's another one we just forget. Oh yeah, he was right there again there. Not a shocker for a guy who's won 2 green jackets, but just he's inevitable. And I almost forget the story of his week in some ways because we were so Rory centric. But it was then Sung J M tied for 5th alongside Bryson DeChambeau, Ludwig Oberg at solo 7th, Xander Schauffele and Zach Johnson both tied for 8th. It was a solid leaderboard.
Yeah, really nothing on those guys. The only other alternative storylines that I'll kind of mention here is, I think if the Bias Stair kid, the USAM player, it turns out to be something on Live or down the road, and his first time that he comes back to Augusta, I think we'll bring up, wasn't that the guy that pissed in Rays Creek?
Dude, not only did he piss in Rays Creek, but when asked about pissing in Rays Creek, said, "Yeah, I would have done it again." I mean, what are we doing here? I really don't know. I guess if he qualifies via, any other metric, whether it's live standings or, he plays well at other events and makes his way to the top 50 in the world rankings. I don't know that they bar him. I don't know that we're at a Wyndham Clark Oakmont situation yet, but I mean, he's going to be persona non grata around there. That's not, I wouldn't if you're an amateur out there, you listen to this podcast, you're looking at the way you're going to play your way into the Master Tournament. Find an outhouse. They're not hard to find.
He passed one. That's the problem on the same hole.
He'd forgotten. That was the explanation. I forgot there was one on 13T, and then I just had to go.
Well, I mean, you got to go. You got to go. Is he going to go piss dogs? I don't know. Probably not.
Honestly, I would have considered piss dogs.
Would you?
I forget what he was wearing. Well, actually, no, I remember vividly what he was wearing. He was wearing one of those upside down lettering hats that many
that was a tough
love.
start.
Tough scene there, but I'm conjuring up images now in my head, and I think he wore black pants for most of the week, which are great for piss dogs.
Sure.
Just let it rip. No one's the wiser. You wouldn't want to do that in white pants or even light colored pants, but black, who's gonna know?
Okay. Notice for next time.
I don't know if he's a fireballs guy. I mean, we see some of the fits Sergio has. It just the yellow bleeds right into the whole color scheme. No one's the wiser. So, Bias Stair, Race Creek.
That was the other one.
And then you had Nick Dunlap on here, which I thought was,
that's the other one. I think that people will kind of always refer back to with his career. I think it's kind of going to be his low point in his career. You would imagine, when you shoot, was it 90? You shoot 90?
Yeah.
I tell you what, that's tough on the grand world stage of the Masters, and especially for a player that we all know how good he is. I mean, I watched the kid play since he was a kid, so it's I hated to see it, but I also know that it's never going to stop him from getting to where he's eventually going to get to.
Well, he goes 90-71, and the extra context of that story was he goes and buys or has his agent go buy a bag of balls, and he's staying at some house in the area and just near the woods, and just rips balls into the woods that night to kind of let it all out.
That's how he is.
It's amazing.
He's just so dedicated to his craft, and I know he's going to get through whatever it is. It started kind of around that time with the stuff off the tee. Once he gets that cleaned up, the rest of the game's so good. So that would probably be something that I think we'll just kind of hang on to in our heads of, okay, when next time Nick Dunlap wins, we can refer back to that Thursday round at Augusta National.
Well, now the crazy thing about that is you think of all the different ways you can be in the spotlight, with a part of your game at a professional level malfunctioning. And the one that feels the most glaring and obvious is putting. We've talked about that with Scotty and others the last couple of years, but really I can't think of anything scarier as a pro golfer than not being able to know where it's going off the tee. Like, that is a much more severe situation than not being able to get in the hole, right? I mean, because you're just, every single hole you're playing from behind.
Do you want to talk to a guy that knows? Because do you want to?
It's supposed to be a tee up for you.
Okay. I didn't know.
A tee up. Yeah.
I can provide a little insight here if you'd like me to, or you could just ponder. Either or.
I mean, I'd say, well, I've seen it. I've also seen what happens after it, and that part's the best part of it. I've seen some amazing escape shots.
It's fun for YouTube. It's not fun for making a living.
That's why we're in the YouTube game now, which is a great place to be. Yeah, I mean, I think you have on here like some notes about Rory, which I loved. Like, just people forget Rory started out Saturday with 6 straight threes. I mean,
I forgot. Didn't you forget?
I was sitting in the press building, which is like, by the way, if we're talking about things we love, now that we're big J journalists, we're emerging on the golf scene as big J journalists, like that press building is just unbelievable, second to none. It's like, stadium seating back to front with this beautiful view of the range, and the murmurs, like just the outright gasps as we're watching every new score fall on his card as he's making threes. That was a pretty electric day.
6 straight threes. So that would all right. So that would mean he's 500 through 6. Is that right?
Yeah.
What a start.
Yeah. Unbelievable. What a start. And then had trouble playing, let's see, 4 doubles that week, 2 on the first day.
Yes, because he was 4 under and then got to 15 and chipped it in the water from behind the green. And then on 17, got out of position, ended up actually hit it over the he ended up having like a 30-footer for par to a back left pin, blew it by, and then missed the comebacker putt.
And was it the double on Sunday was 13, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, double on 13, and then like maybe the greatest 7-iron of all time on 15.
It was Rich that you're talking about the fact that you don't know what the point of going out there and playing golf and winning golf tournaments when you've got guys who are pining, living in their cars, trying to make a cut, playing the DP tour, desperate just to be in an event, let alone have the ability to talk about winning an event and being like, I don't know why I'm doing this. Fulfill me. I'm not fulfilled as a golfer.
In-game live only on SportsGrid.
Y'all know where I'm going. And yeah, you can call it Nick bias all you want. I'm taking the Knicks to come out of the East. I look at this New York team and think that Mike Brown is an upgrade over Tom Thibodeau. You may disagree. I don't care. I look at the fact of getting Yabusele and Clarkson off the bench is going to make the Knicks more dangerous.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Eric Skubal, another incredible performance. I mean, almost going 7-8 innings again, striking out a ton. I mean, I kind of felt like the Tigers really wanted that win.
There's a bit of narrative to it that people like to buy into, or, kind of, I don't want to say push a narrative, but the fact that he's doing what he did last year, but better, and is now in a spot to repeat, like, there's something to be said.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
This is interesting. -116s, -120s in the marketplace. We're seeing now -140s across the board and 6.5s on the total.
He's not a big strikeout pitcher. His metrics look terrible, but he somehow seemingly get 5 innings, 6 innings, only 1 earned run. It's because he's a super ground ball pitcher, induces that soft and medium contact. He can essentially sap the power away from the Dodgers.
Pro Baseball Today. Only on SportsGrid.
one of the most memorable rounds I've ever walked to watch was going out there and walking the front with Jackson and Brian, and the way we kind of navigated these massive crowds following Rory and Bryson around that final group was getting on the left side of 7 about halfway up that hill. So that recovery shot, he kind of cut around the trees back into that green on 7, went right over our heads. One of the coolest shots I've ever seen.
I mean, just think about, that shot on the 7th hole, and then you go all the way until, he's just playing.
Yeah.
Gosh, he's playing good golf, and then that stuff happens at 13. And then the shots he hits down at like 15, of course, is going to be an all-time like heroic shot. That's 7-iron. But then even the pin they use at 16, I think we'll forget about because we're so used to the Sunday hole location at 16 being down to the left.
Mm-hmm.
But this year it was on top, celebrating, I believe, 50-year anniversary, or no, it can't be 50-year anniversary of Jack Nicklaus. When that can't be right. It was
of 86 or what do you?
Yeah, it was like 86 is what they were celebrating, the putt that he made up the hill.
Okay.
And they used that whole location to celebrate that. Maybe it can't be 20. No, it would have been 25 years. Somewhere the
math pod, yeah.
But like the bottom of the cup had something too, I think, if I recall. No, that was the players that had the better than most thing on the cup. Anyways, but I think we'll forget about the iron shot that he hit into the 16th, which was really, really good. He didn't make birdie, but it was a fantastic shot, a shot in which he couldn't hit prior years. Surely, I mean, of course, Rory McIlroy can hit whatever shot he wants. I'm just saying, under pressure in that type of moment, probably would have struggled with it in other years. And then 17, of course, that 8-iron, and then 18 in the playoff, all of that.
Well, I mean, and I just went back to look at his card, and I'd already forgotten that we were there on 1, getting ready for the showdown.
Was it a bogey or a double?
Doubles 1. And
That's right.
and we were thinking at that point Bryson fell off the pace pretty quickly, but we thought it was going to be a Rory Bryson duel. And just watching him kind of make a mess that first hole. But yeah, birdie on 17, and then to miss the putt he misses on 18, and then have something similar in the playoff.
Well, remember, he's in the middle of the fairway and then hits it into the right bunker with a sand wedge or gap wedge.
But still has like a makeable, not a gimme for 4, but he has like,
a 4 or 5 footer.
It's a 4 or 5 footer, and then he has something similar in the playoff and makes it, and just to the release there was
hitting. He had like the same number on 18, but there's 2 drives he hit. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen somebody have like 120 yards in 18, at least not on back-to-back drives.
Yeah, to take on that angle and the way that he did back-to-back, just so nervy. If you lose that a little bit, it's just you could throw the golf tournament away. And yeah. And that was, this is why I love we're doing this exercise, because as we're talking about it, and obviously it wasn't at the Open, but being there for those 3 majors, you're just putting yourself back in those moments and remembering how thrilling it was to watch him go to work in the way that he did. Incredible week. The last one that on here that I think is worth kind of recapping is just you really observed the way the course, maybe not played dramatically different, but the Hurricane Helene, just certain trees that were gone.
Totally.
Now that you're away from it from a few months, I mean, do you think Augusta National does anything to kind of recreate certain shots, or do you think you like the way it laid out?
Oh, it was fine. It was much more of just when you got down to Amen Corner and just how you could see Augusta Country Club over the years, that it'll eventually get back to probably what it used to look like. Yeah. I feel like vegetation always has a way of kind of getting back to where it was.
That's said with agronomic authority. Vegetation.
Well, it just does.
Life,
I don't understand it.
Finds
but it
a way.
Does.
It's very Jurassic Park of you. I think that's nice to go along here on the Masters. I'm not going to short other majors, but the PGA. Let's head to the PGA next. Quail Hollow. Prior to the season, you picked Rory there, which ended up being my one and done pick that week. I picked Justin Thomas. Scotty Scheffler, of course, wins.
That was my one and done pick.
That was your one and done pick. So you did cash that week. I'd love to hear about your favorite shots. And it was just a weird week of storylines, but I'll always remember PGA America was great to kind of set us up right there on the left side of 18. And our last on-site journal that week, you and Jackson and I standing in that sort of hospitality area and watching him with the wind swirling. We're looking at all these different flags behind the 18 grandstand going in different directions, and just hits a perfect approach and then makes maybe like a 8 or 10 footer for birdie on Saturday. And it just really felt like, like he's in command. He's going to go out and win this major here. What do you kind of run through your set of notes for that week in Charlotte?
Well, I would say just from a golf tournament standpoint of like what happened, if you just need a memory refresher, I think the one shot that comes into my head, the one that I think could have changed the outcome of the entire golf tournament,
New to casinos and not sure what to play? Well, try blackjack first. It has a lower house advantage compared to other table games, making it especially player-friendly. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
What do we always say? Follow the money? They just gave Derrick Henry an extension. Do you think the Baltimore Ravens are concerned about it? Doesn't seem like it. And if the Baltimore Ravens aren't concerned, then we shouldn't be concerned either. Because Derrick Henry is a freak of nature. He is a special boy. That's what he is. Derrick Henry is unbelievable. And every year, and then this year too, he's going to get undervalued in drafts. He's going to go after Ashton Genty.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Shohei Ohtani can do something that nobody else in Major League Baseball can do. That means being maybe one of, if not the top 5 best hitters in baseball, and then go on the mound and throw some gems out here. Like, he threw 9 innings so far in his season, which isn't a lot, but that ERA is at 1. Are we saying that once he gets to 5 and 6 innings, that ERA is going to stay at 1? No, it isn't. But if it does, my goodness. I mean, just hand him the Cy Young on top of it as well. It's cheating.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
TJ Watt going to the bank.
I don't remember the last time he had a sack in the last month of that season. And then in the playoffs, he did absolutely nothing. And then you're going to give him $41 million a year, $123 million, what, 108 guaranteed million guaranteed?
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Was on the 13th hole of par 3. John Rahm has that 25 to 30 footer left to right putt. You know how many big left to right putts he's made in his career. And this putt somehow doesn't fall with gravity and misses on the high side. And if that putt goes in, I think he probably walks to the 14th tee with potentially a one-shot lead at that time. But instead walks there, the 14th tee, the drivable hole, hits it into that bunker in a very doable, I wouldn't say simple up and down, nothing's simple at a major championship, but a doable up and down, and hits a kind of a lousy bunker shot, misses the putt, makes par, goes to 15 to par 5, hits a good shot, ends up over the green, and doesn't, blows it by, misses a comeback or makes par. Meanwhile, Scotty Scheffler, terrible from Scotty Scheffler standards on the front nine with the golf swing, has the left miss, shows up to the 10th tee after Ted Scott says, "Hey, dude, you should just aim more right." Next thing you know, whoosh, and then he just kept going and going. But the biggest comparison, I guess I should say, would be that Scotty Scheffler, when he got to 14 and 15, basically was in exactly the same spots that John Rahm was around the green. He was in that bunker at 14. He was behind the green at 15. Scotty Scheffler gets both of them up and down. Yeah. John Rahm then gets to 16, 17, 18, has to go on the offensive, and then the Green Mile decided to attack.
I am kind of bummed. It's not on the Rahm note, like I just felt like hearing him that week feel less defeated than he has at past majors, and really feeling like he liked being back on the hunt, and that was going to kind of push him towards playing better in the last 2 majors of the year, and just was looking back to see where he ended up at the Open. T34 finishes at 3 under, not a terrible result, but it's almost like it was not exactly the reverse of 2024, where it was sort of a disastrous major season for the first 3 with Rahm. Had to withdraw from the U.S. Open, but then has this sort of nice finish at Troon to kind of take him into this season, where the kind of air went out of his sails a little bit. Oakmont, difficult, of course, for everyone, and I believe it was a top 10, maybe even top 7 there at Oakmont. But I just felt like this major was gonna really push Rahm to contention, maybe even winning one of the last 2 of the year, and we didn't get him as close as we maybe would have liked to see him back at that elite form prior to leaving for LIV.
I would say that the one good thing that Jon Rahm has going for him is that it is a Ryder Cup year.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't a Ryder Cup year, we literally would go from now until April. We would look at to see how he played, but we're not talking about and analyzing his golf game like we are, during the major season, because we get to see him play on white golf courses. So it's nice that we get to see him one more go around at the Ryder Cup, because then we just have another way to judge to see how Jon Rahm, plays at the highest level. No, we know that he can. So it's just another at bat for John coming up.
And this was also the extended kind of, not drop off's not fair, but just we thought Rory he was going to be freed up prior, after this Grand Slam win, and now it was a perfect setup for him at Quail this week. Long soft course. We had the driver failing, leaked kind of in a not so great way, and just the sort of Cold War with the press in the months that followed, and not really enjoying his time at Oakmont. And it was nice to see him crescendo back up at Port Rush, of course, playing a home game there. But this was the beginning of this really kind of odd stretch for Rory, when we felt like it was going to be, this whole year was going to be a celebration of him completing the career Grand Slam. Yeah, you're totally right. And nothing more to add other than what you mentioned, but definitely this was kind of the beginning of it. The other thing too, I kind of mentioned the Green Mile with Rahm, but we didn't really get the full experience on Sunday like we had gotten in 2014 with the amazing shot that JT hit on 17. And so that was a bit of a disappointment, because when you looked at all of the stats and stuff for the week, 16, 17, 18 were the hardest holes in the golf course. But once Scotty had broken away from the pack, he's just going to – that is just a dramaless finish for everybody, because guess what? Scotty's not going to screw that up. You said this in our last show, and it's right. It's like we're trying to think back at all Scotty's major wins, and none of them had a ton of drama in them. It's like when he gets a lead I don't know, like Bryson's clubbing decisions towards the end at Quail I just didn't understand, both Saturday and Sunday. Just made I don't
remember Bryson.
He tried to hammer like an 8-iron into 17, and it didn't make any sense given the wind direction.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
He hit it. This was kind of the iron game at Augusta was already a bit of a problem, and then it kind of showed itself up again a little bit at Quail.
I'm trying to remember if he made the switch, because he was using like those Avodas, and then he had like the new LA Golf like BD prototypes that I guess better nailed the roll bulge, but then he went back to the Avoda subsequently. But it was like this was going to be the secret weapon, and it was going to help him with some of this right to left shot shape. But I think you said that week where it just didn't. He wasn't playing the proper shot into some of the wins we saw at Quail that week. He was just insistent on just turning the ball over and over again. And that's something that I think we still have somewhat of a question for Bryson about that part of his game, unless he's allowed to play Polara golf balls on tour next year, which, I got my dozen, and I'm going to go out and field test those in the name of investigative journalism for this show. But yeah, I think for Bryson, it's still kind of a, he's now going to kind of go back in his lab. Of course, he's going to play in the Ryder Cup. Keegan said he's on the team, but this offseason of, messing around, tinkering for Bryson, I'm really excited to see what new gear he has going into the next year that he thinks is going to be the silver bullet.
Yeah, interesting. The only thing you have to ask yourself is this new golf ball that he might play, or this Polaris that's non-conforming. How would it do with a mud ball? A mud ball.
Mud balls were the story of the week that week at Quail. A deluge of rain. It's been a really weird
so
rainy
much
season.
rain. Do you remember? They got like 5 inches of rain on. Was it the Wednesday before, the Tuesday before? And somehow they didn't play it up on Thursday. Like they played it down.
I think that connects to me with, the ongoing debate about Quail Hollow. What sort of a major venue is it? Players love it. The press and media seems to not like it so much, and just connecting with, this is a place that has all this drainage and sub air. Like, how should we kind of decide on how we're going to play the ball up or down at a major versus what's obviously a problem with conditions? And are we really separating the best golfers? So I don't know what other thoughts you have on that topic. It was interesting in that sense that week.
Well, my honorable mention too, that I must bring up now that we talk about Quail Hollow as a venue. You have to remember the Hunter Mahan quote when he said that Quail Hollow is like a Kardashian, just without a soul. It's something without a soul is what he said.
I think the gist was like, looks great, but has no soul to it. And I was like, I don't know if I would have made that comp, Hunter, but
every single person from Charlotte had picket fences with Hunter Mahan's face on it. They were ready for blood.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said it that week, and I kind of feel the same of, if the guys who are playing the tournament are telling you they enjoy playing this place, and it is, and that's why I guess there was this weird conflict of like, this place separates good players from bad players, except when you're making us all play mud balls. It was like you're almost defeated the purpose of the course in a way. But the thing they're telling you they like about it, now you're throwing in this weird wrinkle that makes it weird. Like, if anything, I feel like all the people who critique Quail Hollow should have loved the mud ball situation because there was a quirkiness about it that the course normally does not have.
Yeah, totally. And I think heading into the week, it's coming back to me now. We said that only like 4 guys could win the golf tournament. Mm-hmm. We were pretty aggressive in kind of who we said could win this place because of the length of the golf course. And I think that's when the venue conversation started to get ramped up from our end. Is that do we like venues that only reward length, or do we like shot shape and hitting it straight to be much more of a factor? So I think that was another thing kind of mentioned. But for me, by the end of the week, or beginning of the Thursday, I should say, I was kind of over the whole Quail Hollow debate conversation. It was kind of annoying heading into it. He was already doing the dusting of the spot of where this one was going to go after Augusta this year. And the players, he's had this insane start to the year. We won 3 times. Surely Scotty Scheffler isn't going to have a resume by July that's going to be way better. It's just, there's no way. But here we are. It's Scotty Scheffler with 2 majors on the year.
The Smylie Show, only on SportsGrid.
Her ability to defend, shoot the 3, rebound, pass the ball, and on a team that is awful. Right now, training to get the #1 overall pick if they win the WNBA lottery. Possibly to draft her buddy AZ Fudd, maybe. But when you look at Paige Beckers is a top 10 player in the WNBA.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
I think he's on easily the back 9 of his career at this point. A lot of fans I see on social media saying, we got to sign this guy. Something left here with Noah Fant? What gives?
I think they were ready to move on from him as a veteran, but I think Fant is like a #2 tight end for a contender who can play a lot. I think that would interest me, and I've almost been looking around trying to find a good landing spot for him, and I've settled on what if he were to go back to the Broncos and sort of back up Evan Ingram.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
When it comes to the running back situation, I think Browns fans were pumped to see what Dylan Sampson and Quinton Junkins were going to look like. especially because Judkins is a Buckeye. This is Buckeye territory up here. Ohio State fans were super excited about that. It let a lot of air out of the tire when it looked like this kid's going to miss at least the first 6 games of the season. So they could have a good running back, Tim.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
When you got on site, you're like, oh, what's wrong with this place?
Right. And I think it's like at certain points, like the golf course is the golf course. Like, I don't really want to hear about this all week long. I just want to focus on the tournament being played. Unless
somebody's winning a major.
Yeah, someone's winning a major. And then this, of course, and on the way out here, with this kicked off the string of different Wyndham Clark events. You know, this Wyndham Clark had an interesting sort of item at the final 3 majors of the year in different ways, and this was the driver throw, untimely of sorts, because he is a T-Mobile endorsed athlete, and threw it right in that T-Mobile sign, and that was it was tough there for Wyndham. So that's our PGA Championship recap.
Let's see if I got anything else. I got Scotty screaming F yeah after he won the golf tournament. That was hey, I mean, when we were looking for a little bit more of a energy and a spunk from the guy, and just to be less boring, that competitive just juice came out on the winning putt, and when he had won by 5, or that was pretty sick.
This is file this under everyone who's complaining about Scotty saying that majors aren't fulfilling. It's like, go run that tape back. All right. I think you maybe took him a little bit out of context. All right. I'm sure he loves and cares winning.
He probably accidentally said it. And I feel for a guy who accidentally says the F word.
Yeah. That's right. That's going to be part of our Open Championship recap. We live all the highs and lows of that tournament. Let's head next to Oakmont, the U.S. Open, which, it's so funny in looking at all these and the victors, and obviously Rory, the storyline at the Masters is probably the best storyline of the week. But even with the winner that people don't classify as, a name brand, and we want to see, I think I had the most fun that week of just watching how difficult that course was and seeing a course for the first time. And then maybe it was just how delighted I was to be in the city of Pittsburgh and discovering this place I'd never been before that was like just a great hang across the board. But heading into that week, heading into the year, you had Scotty winning this U.S. Open. I had Xander winning. The winner, of course, was JJ Spawn. Came out of the second to last group, I want to say, second to last, third to last group, because you were on that group. And the 2 iconic moments, of course, is 17 and 18. The drive he hits on 17, unbelievable. And then that bomb he hits on 18 for birdie to finish as the only player in the tournament under par. Let's start with just you recollecting that day as the walker in JJ's group.
Okay, so Sunday, my recollection, I just was thinking, oh man, my group got off to such a bad start. And in a day in which I felt that I was going to be a part of, just a really, really fun Sunday at Oakmont, all of a sudden, JJ spawned is 5 over through 6 holes. Victor Hovland's not doing much better. He was maybe half of that through 6 holes, but hit a nice shot, I think, into the 5th hole to kind of get him back, settled down. But I'm just, like JJ was, we had stopped showing his shots on about the 7th hole, and we maybe showed 1 on 8, but we didn't show any of his stuff on 7. And, at that point, I'm just kind of keen in on Victor at this point until JJ gets it back going again. And he's not going to get it back going again on the 8th or 9th hole. But at that point, when we got to 8, that's when the rain started coming down, and we get to 9T, and they blow the horn. So we go in, and by the way, going into the day,
I completely forgotten about the rain delay until you just said that.
He's not winning this golf tournament if it went for the rain delay.
I had completely forgotten about that until now. Wow. And that was rain shorts. That was the highlight of the week for me.
Yeah, rain shorts. Yeah. So I don't know if he went inside and drank Michael Jordan's secret juice, from Space Jam. Michael, is it Michael's Secret Stuff? Is that what it was called?
Michael's Secret Stuff.
Yeah. I don't know what he drank, but I don't know if he had a beer or something to settle him down. But I think you don't get many timeouts in the game of golf. And that was the best timeout ever called for JJ Spawn, because he came out and parred the ninth hole and then played a 3 under par back nine with catching breaks in certain spots. And then also, holing obviously some of the most iconic putts we've ever seen in US Open, the 64 footer on the 18th hole, but also making bombs at 12 and 14.
Yeah, a very deserving winner. And I thought that was, as we were sitting on the couch in that Airbnb and north side of Pittsburgh, wherever it was, just almost kicking ourselves for not looking at the list of potential contenders and saying this guy could fit the profile. Like, he does everything that this golf course calls for, and we overlooked him. So really earned his due. Of course, there was
the drive at 17 too, by the way.
If you're listening when I introduced this thing, I mentioned that.
Gotcha.
But
sorry,
no,
I didn't. We kind of worked our way up. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean that that was unbelievable, and your breakdown of that you did on that show, recapping it, and then subsequently on our pages is just so cool. Just like the needle he had to thread, and the other players that tried to, I'm thinking Bobby Mack coming up just short, Tyrrell Hatton, and just couldn't get it done. I mean that is also. Kudos to JJ for pulling that off. Felt bad for that final group, the Adam Scott, Sam Burns group, the whole Sam Burns. And I don't know, have you seen this on TikTok where they have like recreations of certain, things, and it's like this thing 99.7% accuracy, right? And there was like a whole bunch of them on TikTok in the weeks coming where it was like people who had jumped into their swimming pools in full golf clothes with their gloves. There's Sam Burns out there. I love that trend so much.
There's literally a guy
for Sam.
There was a guy in the bottom of the pool, and the golf ball is on the ground. He's trying to hit it, and then he goes up and he says, "Can I call for a ruling?" And the guy dives into the pool, and then the guy's down there. He's like doing this, and he said, "No, you don't get a drop." Gosh, it was so good, and I have to imagine Sam was laughing at those because what can you do? I mean, it was terrible rulings, and. Sure, the USGA could probably say, well, by the letter of the law, that's not relief. Well, let's just use better judgment in this. I mean, when you look at the USGA rule book, it's a big book, and it has a lot of different things that are changed over the years. There's A, B, C's, I'm sure, that have, evolved, right? I'm sure it started as a much smaller rule book, and there's been items that have been added over the years, and now you're to the point with a lot of different stuff with the rules of golf that I'd love to see the PGA Tour adapt their own rule system, because there's too often things that I feel like the USGA and the PGA Tour have different set of rules that they govern by that the PGA Tour has to go by, because they are going by the USGA and the R&A's rules, but.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip? Try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
I sit with my team that is absolutely, stench. And then I watch the world champs suck this bad. I enjoy every second of it. I hope they lose every night. And, I'm really used to losing. It's been going on for 55 years. So I don't want to hear it about your problems with that cushy Dodger ownership group.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple 18.5 point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
in a situation like this, when it comes down to right and wrong, I think it I'm not going to say it determined the U.S. Open, but it definitely played a factor, which you don't want. You don't want to happen. You want it to be as fair of a playing field as possible. And I'm for chaos at U.S. Opens. I'm for crazy things happen there and unfair things happening. But that one just seemed like it maybe crossed the line a little bit, because I can tell you firsthand, I walked those fairways. I know what the splash of every single step felt like, and I was walking in a puddle every single step I took.
Oh, look what happened to JJ Spawn with the flag stick and the rake. I mean, those are just things that are out of your control and you have to deal with and make it through if you're going to win a U.S. Open. But those are also parts of the game that, it's just, it's a hard luck thing. Whereas like hitting the ball.
I was like, flag stick, what are you talking about? He hit a flag stick on the second hole.
Yeah.
People forget.
People forget those are different flag sticks, as you noted on our recap show. I think it's in terms of the PGA Tour having different rules, we could be headed for that with the whole rollback situation in a couple of years here. But I do think it's just the rules of golf are so interesting, because it's the spirit with which they were originally created is a sort of gentleman's game, and you're not going to try to create advantages. But of course, if you're playing for millions and millions of dollars, you are going to know the rules and try to use them to your advantage when you can. When we see that, on a weekly basis with TIO relief and, the shot link towers and all sorts of things like that. So then there becomes a sort of rigidity around around certain rules where it's like, no, you can't take a ball out of a divot, or, oh, if we ride it where, there's water in your stance and not around your ball, you can't take relief. And it's all these things where, if you could apply common sense and the sort of, this sort of gentlemanly approach to the game of golf that years and years ago when it was created made sense, that would make sense. But, it's just times are different, and the way that the rules are applied and kind of tested by players is different. And it's a shame we end up like things like that for Sam Burns. And then on Adam's side, had nothing to do with the rules, but just I remember you talking about and hearing on the broadcast, just Bones coming on saying, this is one of the worst lives I've seen all week. And the next, I was like, this is somehow worse than the last live I just saw for Adam Scott. And I mean, that was one, like, I was rooting for Adam. I really thought he would have been an amazing champion at Oakmont. But that's the game of golf. That's how U.S. Opens go.
Yeah, and Victor Hovland, he definitely could have won that golf tournament if it wasn't for his driver on some of those key holes. 15th hole was one of them where he didn't hit the fairway the entire week at 15. And then he had he just had that right miss that kept on giving him an issue. And I think if he was a little bit more dialed in with the driver, that he could have easily won that golf tournament too.
Yeah. And that we kind of run through that 4 set of contenders that came out of those last 2 groups. We of course had Bobby Mack, who darn near wins the thing or could have been a contention to the thing.
Cam Young finished like top. He finished like top 5 too, Cam Young, and he wasn't even a part of it either. So Bobby Mack, the clapping after he made the putt, that was great. I would say the only other thing to mention is Scotty, Rory, and Bryson. Those are obviously been the 3 best players, and all 3 of them struggled off the tee, struggled finding fairways, and Oakmont did what it did best, which is first and foremost, you got to be able to find the short grass, and if you don't, you're going to be penalized. All 3 were penalized the first couple days. Bryson, I don't think made the cut, did he? Bryson missed the cut.
Bryson missed the cut.
Yep, he missed the cut. Rory,
after all the hoopla about how straight he was driving it in the week leading up, and that was like, I felt like that was the last gasp of Rory's frustration tour. It was like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm exhaling. Let me get overseas and
he had
just
a good
spend
Sunday,
some time.
but he had a good Sunday.
Yeah.
That was the only good thing, was that he actually got better on the weekend, even though mentally he didn't quite have the fight because he wasn't a part of the storyline, but he did hit it better over the weekend. And then Scotty, it was just too little too late, because he almost was close enough if he had the putter going on the weekend, but he didn't quite get the putts to go in. But he was just he just set himself up too far back with just some rough days, because remember, he was like yelling at Randy on the range after the first couple of days.
And then they had that whole, the next day where like Ted Scott and Randy were like, doing like sort of a skit, which was, you know, the real dad humor on the topic of Father's Day weekend. That was some real dad humor.
Oh, that skit,
yeah,
I do remember that.
Yeah, that was that was also this. I gotta get two sicko gear tinker things in the mix here. I love so much that Scotty has his training aid, that this thing he stands up, is 2 Ventus shafts. Like, the guy's got like $1,000 training aid sitting right there that I just wish I could go out and just like grab one of those Ventuses and then take it home, put it in my bag.